we going to do this? Can you see this? Create, we're supposed to go live here, and we did a test video. Now we need to do the live. So let's go live here. We're going to go live. We're not going to do that right now. We're not going to do tips right now. Okay. Are we on? Okay. Macros made simple. Okay, see? I think that's it. And we're gonna go live now. Okay. That wasn't me, that was my sneaker.
It's okay if you did.
Okay, so welcome to our very first live here in the studio. This is kind of exciting for us. After meeting with Riley last week, we made the decision that we were going to offer to our community, whether you come into the studio or not, these live series with free nutritional content. So we're actually going to offer nutrition coaching for free for the next 12 weeks till the end of the year. So we've got so many other things going on at the studio here with a new website. We've got the app coming. We have a new CRM system coming. We have new audio technical upgrades. We have also the new scheduling software, and hopefully the first two pieces will be here this week. But in the meantime, we thought the easiest way to get you some really good information and content is to have someone who is an expert in the industry answer your questions. So we are going to talk about macros made simple today, and hopefully you will find some of this information useful. So, Riley, do you want to just talk a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Hello, everyone watching. My name is Riley. I am a Marywood graduate with my bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics, and I'm currently continuing my education and getting my master's degree in sports nutrition and human performance, and completing my 1,000-hour dietetic internship. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm on the road to being a registered dietitian. I'm not quite there yet, so this is also giving me good experience to get where I want to be.
Yeah, fantastic. We feel so privileged to have you here, so thank you for doing this. So, first question I'm going to ask you is, what exactly are macros?
So your macros, or your macronutrients, are your carbs, protein, and fat. These are what make up the calories in the foods that we're eating, and they provide structure to our bodies and give us energy, which I think we're going to talk about a little more later.
Yeah. Why do macros matter? Like, why does everybody want a macro report and
So it's kind of different for every person of what they may be looking for what their body is, any conditions they may have, what their goals are as far as weight loss, weight gain, muscle gain, and what their athletic performance looks like. They're kind of different for everyone, so they're important in the grand scheme of things because they each provide essential function to our body, like energy, bone structures, hair, skin, and nails, fat storage, all things that we need to function on a daily basis.
Excellent, excellent. What are the main functions of each macro?
So carbohydrates, mainly we focus on energy from our carbohydrates. Protein is muscle building, bone building, our hair, skin, and nails. And then fat is our energy stores, protecting our organs, stuff like that.
Awesome, awesome. How do macros affect our energy levels?
Well, as I mentioned, the main one is carbohydrate that would affect our energy levels. They provide the energy that we need on a daily basis and brain function. So our brain can't function without carbohydrates. This goes a little bit more into depth, but
that's right.
If we don't have carbohydrates, then our body relies on ketones, but our brain can't function on ketones. So carbohydrates in an energy sense are really important for our brain function.
So how then would you, because we get this question, this is kind of off the subject here, but we get this so often. People come in here and they're afraid of eating carbohydrates for their workouts. And I keep trying to tell folks how important carbohydrates
it's really
are.
The opposite. They're so important, not only before working out, to have the energy that you need to get through the workout. I know even sometimes in kettlebell class, if I don't fuel properly beforehand, like I don't feel good in class. And then it's also really important. You're burning a lot of calories in these classes and on a daily basis, and you need to replenish your stores and eat after and eat continually throughout the day to replenish the energy that you're burning.
Excellent, excellent. So how do I know if I'm eating enough of each macro?
So this is also kind of individual. Nutrition is very individual, so that's what I'm going to say a lot. It's depending on how you feel and if you're reaching the goals that you have and how you feel as an individual, I feel like is the biggest thing that we focus on. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. I can't tell everybody to eat the same amount of things every day. Like you and I eat very differently every day because we have different goals and we have different lifestyles and our bodies are very different. It depends on how you feel and as an individual, I would say.
Yeah, so I know, like for me personally, the days that, as a matter of fact, and it was funny, I featured this last Tuesday on my story and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe people aren't gonna say something about this, but if you noticed, I had some chicken meatballs that I made. I had a bed of arugula and I put 2 little nests of Italian pasta on top. And I thought, oh, well, you know, pasta gets such just bad rap, and that's a whole other story, but Italian pasta doesn't have the stuff that we have here that I get it at Trader Joe's. But why I had pasta Monday night was because I needed to be in here on Tuesday morning teaching Dance and Define at 6 a.m. and then at 8 a.m. I had Yoga Sculpt, and I know that if I do not eat enough carbohydrates, then I'm fueling that night. That meal is fueling my energy that I'm going to need for the next day. How important they are, and I couldn't do what I do here if I wasn't eating the correct carbohydrates and fueling my workouts appropriately. And I think my message has always been to folks is, 1, to keep a journal, and 2, like notice if you come into class, kettlebell class, and you're feeling like tanked, like you don't have it, it means that something that happened hours before with what you ate, maybe it was just a grilled piece of chicken on a salad and you had no carbs, that's probably why you're tanking. So I think it is all individual, but I think it's kind of nice the healthier you get, you start to notice, how do I feel like I have energy, and what is it that I need to be putting in my body before these workouts. So does that make sense?
It's even like we encourage fueling before and fueling after, but I feel like it's like the whole day, like kettlebell at 4:30 tonight, I'm already paying attention to what I've been eating all day to be fueled for the class.
Absolutely. So here's a big loaded question, and so I'm thankful that you're going to answer this, because if I were to answer it, people would be like, and I'm sure they do when you look at my stories, how many grams of protein should someone eat daily?
It depends. It depends. So for an average person, 10 to 35% of their daily calories should come from protein. However, if you're an athlete and you're focusing on building muscle and stuff like that, it's going to increase. It also depends on, any conditions you may have, your age, your weight, your height. It's very dependent.
Yeah. So I know I stick to a higher protein. I'm sure sometimes when you see some of my breakfast, it has 45 to 50 grams of protein in it.
You need that.
That's
though.
a lot. But I am tearing down muscle every day. And so if I'm not, teaching classes, I'm stretching folks, lifting, folks up. So I do stick to higher protein, but that doesn't mean I don't have carbohydrates as well. All right. Are carbs bad for weight loss?
No. In fact, quite the opposite, I would say. It's really important, especially if you're focusing, like we've been talking about, on exercise for weight loss. Like, you're not going to feel good in those workouts and burn a lot of calories and be able to perform well if you don't have the carbohydrates. However, there are like good carbs versus bad carbs. So obviously we're not going to eat candy and cake before we work out. It's more of the whole grains, fiber-filled foods to keep you fuller longer and keep you energized. These are really important for weight loss.
Fantastic. What happens if I cut carbs too low?
you're not going to feel energized, first of all. You're probably not going to be sleeping as well. It's important for sleep function, brain function, as I mentioned before. Our brains can't function without carbohydrates. Like, this is a big thing that I didn't know about until I started learning about bodily metabolism in school and stuff, and that the brain can't function, like, cannot without carbohydrates.
I can remember when I used to bodybuild, and right before a show, they would strip your carbohydrates down to lean you out. And granted, I was down to about 5% body fat, which is completely unhealthy. But I can remember my boss coming up to me just 3 or 4 days before, and I still had to work out during that time before the show, and it's very difficult to put your muscles through a contraction without carbs. And then my boss came up to me and he said, if you ever do this again, you know, meaning strip your carbs like this, you're not allowed to work here anymore, because I had no capacity to think clearly. It was really quite scary. And so I know that a lot of people I talk to that come in here have been in situations where they're getting, I'm going to just say it, macro assessments, and they're getting things from trainers that deplete your carbohydrates to, I think, to a completely unhealthy level. And so, you know, you have to really watch if you're having those telltale signs of not having energy after you wake up in the morning, you're feeling foggy in your brain, things like that. You really need to take a look at what you're ingesting as part of your macros. Does that sound valid? Yeah. Okay. What are healthy fats and why do I need them?
So your healthy fats are going to be your unsaturated fats. So this is going to be nut and seed oils, nuts and seeds themselves. They're all really important. We recommend these instead of the saturated fats that are in a lot of processed foods and fatty meats and stuff like that, because they don't have as much of an effect on the heart. Saturated fat leads to a lot of heart conditions, diabetes, things like this. The unsaturated fats are a lot better for the body.
Awesome. So here are my fats. I do pumpkin seeds in the morning with my green juice. I have walnuts. I throw them on a salad. Salmon, avocado. Anything else? Like, am I doing okay with
cooking your food with olive oil or some kind of nut or seed oil is always recommended.
How about coconut oil?
Coconut oil is actually saturated fat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the one that,
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to say anything is bad. I feel like that's something that I've learned through school and, like, really believe in, is that balance, variety, and moderation, like, is all part of a healthy diet. And I'm never going to tell, like, somebody not to have something. It's just limiting what you're having of everything.
So I use sometimes coconut oil to cook with in, like, muffins and stuff like that. Is that okay? Or okay, great. All right, how can I build a balanced meal using macros? So for my training through Precision Nutrition, we use your palm for your protein, your thumb for your fats, and your fist for your carbs.
That's also what we recommend.
Okay, great.
It's like, you know, obviously our hands tell a lot about us, so everybody's a different size, and that's what we recommend. Also, as basic as it may sound, like the My Plate recommendations are also a really good place to start that we recommend. Half your plate fruits and vegetables, the other half split between your whole grains and your protein sources, a variety of protein sources throughout the day, and then make sure you're getting your dairy and your calcium of some sort in there too. Is a good place to start if you don't know where.
So Precision Nutrition, the reason why they do the palm, the thumb, the fist is because they are, I have to be careful how I say this, but you know, you always have your hand with you when you're out dining, right? You don't have a scale and you're not going to measure your food. So this is a really easy way in order for you to know, am I kind of where I need to be? And I think the more comfortable you get doing that, the easier it becomes. I don't weigh my food. There's only one time in my life that I've ever weighed my food, and that was when I was in a contest, because it was important. But never since. And I kind of know where I need to be. The other recommendation that I tell lots of folks, and this is from Precision Nutrition also, is I only eat till I'm 80% full. Would you agree that's
you don't want to overeat, but you also don't want to get to that point where you're also fully full.
Okay. So what is a common macro mistake people make, do you think?
Not not enough carbs and too much protein.
Yeah.
I think is something very big right now. Protein is in everything. My mom and I were grocery shopping yesterday, and it was like the most random things. They were like protein filled, and I was like, people are probably definitely overeating their protein and not focusing on their carbohydrates as much as they should. And carbohydrates and protein actually have the same caloric value. They're both 4 calories per gram, and I don't think people realize that, like, that carbs are so bad, but they have the same caloric value per gram as protein. So I think a lot of people focus a lot on their protein and less on their carbs.
Yeah. Balance, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What is a good macro ratio to start with?
So the AMDR recommendations, 45 to 65% of your calories should come from carbohydrates. I believe it's 20 to 35 protein, and then 10 to 15 should be fat.
Okay.
So that's a good place to start, and then adjust based on other, how you feel, your activity level, things like that, but that's a good baseline.
Okay. How do macros, I love this question, how do macros relate to metabolism?
So we've been talking a little bit about this actually already. Specifically, I keep coming back to carbohydrates. I think that might be my favorite macronutrient, but like specifically carbs and your metabolism, it can't function correctly without carbohydrates. Like even your sleep and your hormone function, like it all comes down to these things, and like bodily functions all together like need food to survive. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that, like our body relies on us. Like some things can happen, like we break down stores and stuff when we need to do certain functions in our body, but at the end of the day we have to provide what our body needs. So I think that if we deprive it of anything, then certain things aren't going to happen, like hormone function, sleep, all these things.
So one of the things that I love talking to clients about, because I'm a science geek, but the thermal effect of food. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when you are eating, I always try to tell folks, eat really dense foods. Like get rid of the bars. I have been saying for 30 years of my 40-year career to always shop the perimeter of the grocery store and very rarely go into the inside. I honestly just ran to Weiss right before we came here. First I went to the health food store to get my meats, and then I went to Weiss, and I literally, the only place that I went to was the fruit and vegetable section. I got sweet potatoes, I got carrots, I got peppers, I got organic broccoli, I got some organic bananas, and I also got some avocados. And so when we talk about thermal effective food, you actually burn calories from digesting your food. So, if you stick to things that are simple, such as bars and cookies and white breads and things like that, it breaks down a lot easier. You actually burn calories the more dense, rich foods that you eat. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so when you think about, your meals and what you're preparing, don't be afraid to have, color and, a variety of vegetables. We had a retreat on Saturday, and they made this beautiful plate of roasted vegetables, and I'm like, I'm really kind of craving that. So that's why I went out and got all of those vegetables to roast tonight. I'll throw them on a piece of chicken. I may throw them on a bed of quinoa or something like that. But think about the foods that you're eating, how can you make sure that they're the most nutrient dense foods to help that thermal effect of food?
Yeah.
That sound right?
Yes, that's important.
This leads into this question, can I hit my macros by eating processed foods?
Yeah, I would say that you can. I know everybody's budget is obviously different. We try to obviously recommend fresh fruits and vegetables first, fresh meat sources and stuff like that, but it's not realistic for everybody. And processed foods aren't always bad. It's just about learning what's in the label and what we should try to limit and what's okay to have. Like, I think of an example is we recommend a lot of canned fruits and vegetables or frozen. They have the same nutritional value as fresh fruits and vegetables, and they're usually cheaper and they keep longer. So processed foods aren't always bad. terms of like protein supplements and things like that, bars, shakes, we try to recommend food first, but not food always, because it's not always realistic if you have a higher protein goal to meet it with food alone. So then in cases like that, the processed stuff is okay too.
Okay. So how do I track my macros without getting obsessed?
Yeah. So I think this again is dependent on the person. I think when you're first starting out, it's kind of important to track, at least in some way, shape, or form, to make sure that you're meeting your goals. But it's not always something that should be done for a long period of time. It doesn't need to be done once you're learning, like, okay, the foods that I'm eating have this amount of calories, this amount of carbs, protein, then you can kind of move away from this. I guess it's kind of a mental battle in itself for some people, like seeing those numbers and stuff. So I think in that case, I would recommend, like, don't write it down, then go based on how you feel and the progress you're making, how your clothes fit, how much energy you have. That's what I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I always say, when you wake up in the morning, do you feel energized?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you feel like, wow, I don't need to run down and get that caffeine in my body with a cup of coffee right away. Like, I feel like I'm rested and I'm good. You know, I feel like I'm ready to do some exercise the next day. How do your clothes fit? And we'll get into all these other things about the weighing, and each week we're going to have a topic that we'll announce for you, so you can send in your questions. But yeah, I think that's super important, not to be obsessed over the numbers. Yeah. So what is the best, oh, you said keep it simple. What is the biggest macro myth that you would like to bust today?
That carbs are the bad for you. I love carbs, like I really do, and I think that they're so important, and I just really hate that they have such like a negative connotation to them.
Yeah.
Like, they're so important, and I think that, like, even fruits and vegetables, like, people are so afraid of the sugar in fruits, and it's like, fruit is so important because it provides fiber, and like, sugar isn't bad either. Like, everything in moderation is important. Yeah.
And so when we say sugar isn't bad for you, we're talking about the natural sugar from vegetables and fruits, not taking a teaspoon of sugar like, you know, they used to, I think, decades and decades ago, right? If you were sick, that your grandmother would tell you to take a teaspoon of sugar. But getting your again, think about fruits, the fiber that's in them, and the thermal effect of food when you're eating, right? Yeah. So good news, if we missed your question, please feel free to respond here on one of the lives. I'm not sure if we're still on Instagram Live. It doesn't look like we are, but we'll fix that for next time. Good news is, once our app goes live, everyone will get a macro assessment, just so you kind of know and have a baseline on where you are at. So we are inching closer. The first thing that's coming through is the website and our MindBody software upgrade to the scheduling system. And hopefully within 2 weeks from that first initial launch, we will have the app up and running. So, anything else? Okay, well, we are so grateful if you tuned in. We will have this recorded on our YouTube channel. We will also have it here every Monday. We're going to be here at 12:30. And send your questions in, and hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh no, I don't know if it went. Oh, it says we're live. Okay. No clue. Did it go through, Amy?
I don't think we were live on Instagram.
We weren't.
Dang.
But we were